Okay, good morning, or good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is where you are while you're watching this. Just trying to decide a good way to show you the rest of what we're going to do with the Siemens programmer. So I set up downstairs here in my basement. Thought I'd do a little bit of programming and show you what I was talking about. The first little bit, well, I think will be fairly straightforward, fairly easy to follow, and then maybe we'll get into a little more complex programming later and show you how to create objects on the HMI as well. So for the first part, we're going to go ahead and start our project. So we're going to open what we originally created, or at least this was the plan. Okay, and you notice that came up fairly quickly because I had already had it open before. If I opened the PLC project itself, it's an empty project with just main OB1 loaded and nothing else. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, if you take a look, well, I'll show you later, I'll do a snapshot of this. But what I've done is I've labeled my inputs here. So I0.0 I've labeled start, I0.1 I've labeled stop, auto for I0.2, I0.3 is manual, and I0.4 is reset. I didn't create labels for them, but the outputs I was originally going to create on for Q0.0 and auto mode for Q0.1, and it's kind of an arbitrary designation just so I can demonstrate a few things. So the first thing we're going to do is create some PLC tags or aliases if you use the Rockwell term. So I'm going to go ahead and open up PLC Tags, double click on Show All Tags. Now I can just start typing in here, and what's going to happen is it's going to bring up the first input that is on my list. So if I type in start and press enter, you'll notice that I0.0 comes up automatically because it's my first input. I could override that, even if it comes up here at this point. I could type in anything, any address I want, but I can leave that because it's exactly what I want it to happen. So afterwards, I'll type in stop. I'll come up as I0.1, auto, manual, reset. Okay, now at this point, I want to type in two tags for my outputs. One was going to be on, and Q0.1 was going to be auto mode. So I'm going to type in on. Now you notice it came up as I0.5, so I can go over here and override this and just go ahead and type in Q0.0. Okay, now the next tag is going to be auto mode. So if I type in auto mode and just press enter, it's going to be the next output on the list, Q0.1. So that worked out kind of nice. So that's all I'm going to do for now, just as part of my demonstration. Okay, so we've gone ahead and put in the program PLC tags. I do apologize if the video is a little bit choppy. So put in the tags. I'm going to double click on add new block. I'm going to go ahead and select FC for function. I'm going to give it a name, main. Programming language will be ladder, and block numbering is automatic in this case. So it's the first block is going to be number 1, next block is going to be number 2. If you want to change that, you can just simply go to manual and choose whatever block number that you want. So we're going to go to automatic, or main was already OB1, so we're going to call this main program. It already created my first network. I'm going to go ahead and drag my first contact down. Now you notice it created a second network. I'm not a fan of this. I would prefer to get rid of this network here and just work with the one network. If I double click on where the question marks are, I can now type in my first tag, which is start. You notice that it comes up automatically with I0.0. If I was to just put in S, I would get start and stop. If I put in nothing, then I get a pull down with all the options I have for that contact. So start. Okay. And you can click anywhere on the screen, or you can just hit or press enter. So if I go up to the button bar here and take a look at the options I have, and I'm going to mouse over this particular contact here, you notice that Siemens is calling this normally open contact, where in Rockwell we say examine if closed. So every PLC manufacturer has a slight different way of describing their contacts. Well, I guess there's only really 2 or 3 different ways to describe it. It's normally open, normally closed, or examine if closed, examine if opened. If I mouse over this contact, it comes up as normally closed as opposed to examine if open. So just something to get used to when we talk about terminology. Okay, so I want to add one output here. So drag the output down. If I double click on that field, it can come up blank. If I click on this little icon here with a few lines in it, I'm not sure if you can see that, and I can select my first output, Q0.0, which I labeled as on, and press enter. So that's the first program. Now if you recall, I mentioned that OB1 is a traffic cop. It determines which blocks get called and in what order. So I have to go back to OB1, double click on OB1, and I need to create a call for the main program. And in this case, it's very easy. I can just take my main program, I've selected it, drag and drop onto this rung, and it's created a call for the main program. And as you've noticed, it's created this extra network here. Like I said, I'm not a fan of this. It's just a housekeeping thing for me. I'll leave it there just to show you that it's not a problem. I'm going to go ahead and save that project. Now I'm going to download my entire PLC again. If I was just to click on main and press download, it would download only the main program. If I click on OB1 and press the download button, then it'll just download OB1. Maybe I shouldn't have labeled this main program. I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to change the name of this. So I'm going to go ahead and rename it. And I'm just going to go ahead and call it program 1. Okay, that way I don't mix up main and program. So go ahead and click on PLC 1. Press this blue icon here for download that you're familiar with. And I've already downloaded it to PLC once when I set up the configuration and everything, so I'm just going to go ahead and press load. So I have to select the interface drivers of the network card because we've already done that. Press on finish. Okay, so now I need to make sure that my PLC is in run mode. So I'm going to go ahead and go online. Then I'm going to double click on online and diagnostics. Take a look at the far right side, and it does indeed say I'm in run mode. Got the green light saying I'm in run. There's no faults. There's no maintenance messages. Down here you can see it shows me my cycle time, which is running approximately at a 1 millisecond. Probably not going to show me any less than that. Longest time was 2 milliseconds, which could have been during the download cycle. So if I go down to the bottom of the tabs, where the tabs are, I can click on program 1. Okay, notice I'm not monitoring that rung. I have to tell Siemens to monitor the rung. It won't come up automatically. Even though I'm online, this rung doesn't monitor automatically. I have to tell Siemens to go ahead and monitor that rung. It does take PLC scan time to do the monitoring. It will only allow you to monitor so many rungs at a time, so you have to select that yourself. See that little icon here? It's got the little arrow on it with the glasses. Click on monitoring. Now you can see we're showing up as blue, being off, and the power is being stopped. This is kind of the way it's showing here. Right, power is coming down this left rung, showing as green. It's getting stopped at my examine if closed or normally open contact. So if I go down to the switch and I turn the switch on, okay, the light on the input turned on. I have the output turning on my screen, and the output is turning on the PLC. So that was just a very simple program. So I'm going to go offline. I prefer to make offline changes, and I'm going to add a contact in here. So I'm going to pull down this examine if open, or in this case for Siemens normally closed contact. Just drop it right in here, and we're going to make this the stop switch. Okay, very simple. If I click on program 1, FC1, press download, it will only download that particular block. So it's depending on how large your program is, this could make your downloads a lot faster. I'm going to go online and go back to my glasses with the arrow, show monitoring. Okay, switch 1 is still on, or 0.0 is still on. 0.1, designated as stop, is actually showing true because my switch is off. Examine if off, or examine if open, I should say. If I reach down and flip this switch on, my output will turn off. Okay, so a very simple program. Next thing we're going to do is say add a timer. When we do that, we'll add a timer. Okay, so now that we've done our first program and our first rung, we're going to go ahead and add a timer to this. Make a very simple flasher, just like we did before. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on this rung, say add network, and I'm going to go ahead and use the output Q 0.0 as the input for the timer, or activation for the timer. So this will be on. Okay. Now on the task card, on the right hand side, I can take a look at timer operations, grab TON for, they call it generate on delay or time on delay. Drag it down here. Now you notice that it comes up and says IEC timer 0 dB. Every timer needs an instance data block to go along with it. I'm going to call this on timer. And I'm going to set this time for 2 seconds. That'll be S pound, oops, sorry, T for time, pound to S, 2 seconds. Okay. And just like we did in the lab, I'm going to go ahead and just put what I want to turn on as a flasher. I'm going to put it right here. So I'm just going to make this the auto output, which is Q 0.1 auto mode. It really, I mean, I just arbitrarily named these, so it really doesn't matter so much. Okay, so when Q 0.0 turns on timer, the name on timer will turn on. It'll start timing, and once it reaches 2 seconds, it will turn on Q 0.1, just what you're familiar with. So we're going to go ahead and finish the rest here. Okay, now similar to Rockwell, I can type in on, pick up on timer, and you notice it gives me the option of in, which would be the result of logic operation for the input to the timer, or the Q, which is the output of the timer. I'm going to use this to drive a second timer, so I'm going to go ahead and pull another timer down, and I'm going to just call this off timer. T pound to S. Okay, and I actually don't need to drive anything with that timer because I'm only going to turn this light on. Now I need to use the output of the off timer to reset the on timer. So go ahead and pull down normally close contact or examine if open, and use the off timer output. Quickly edit this to be Q. Send that back or save the project. I always save before I download. Download it back to the PLC. Monitor. So as it counts up to 2 seconds, Q 0.1 turns on. Off timer starts timing, and once the off timer reaches 2 seconds, it resets the on timer. Okay, now I don't have a light or simulation, so if you just take a look at the PLC itself, you can see the output turning on and off. Okay, so as the first little bit of video here, I'm going to go ahead and stop at this point, save it, edit it, and see if I can get it posted, and hopefully this works out okay. It's funny, if I did this in a lab setting, it'd be a lot different, but when you're doing videos on your own, for some reason you kind of get choppy and jump around a little bit. So like I said, let me finish here, get this posted, and I'll get on to the next portion of this, which I'll do some math operations and get into HMI programming and a few things like that as well. Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.